Hello, welcome to my talk on measuring and improving platform maturity and operational readiness. Before I dive in, I'll take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Christina. I was originally born in Colombia and I live in New York. I'm currently a founding engineer at Cortex. We give organizations visibility into the status and quality of their microservices and help teams drive adoption of best practices so that they can deliver higher quality software. Prior to joining Cortex, I worked at a hedge fund for 4 years. So, before we can actually talk about improving platform maturity, it's key to understand where you are today. So, that means assessing the health of your platform as it stands. And based on that, we can create a path towards improvement. Step one of doing so is defining the key questions. It differs for every business, but for example, you can ask things like, how many incidents have we had in the last week? How many have we had in the last month or in the last quarter? Are teams adopting the latest deploy strategies? Is basic unit testing pervasive? Is everything adequately code reviewed? Whatever those questions are, figure out what is important to your team. And doing so will let you pinpoint the gaps. So once you have this list of questions, you can go and find out answers for them. You can do this based on your own intuition and understanding. You can also poll or interview engineers on your team. You can look at whatever metrics you have available. Remember that they don't have to be beautiful dashboards with all of your answers. You can do one-off research projects just to understand where the organization stands today. And so once you have these answers, you'll be able to actually find the problems and the hotspots in your software development cycle today. And then from there, you can decide and focus what actually you want to improve on. So for example, if you find that teams aren't releasing frequently, maybe you're releasing once a sprint, or maybe releases are getting so big that it takes a really long time to test before them, you can focus on improving your deployment frequency. So that means doing smaller releases more often. This can help reduce incidents, for example. And so that's another thing that you can choose to focus on. Of course, it's not always this simple. And there can be big differences across teams, and that's okay. You can have org-wide goals, team-wide goals, but you can use this as a general framework to just figure out where you are today, where those gaps are, and what you want to improve on. And this is something that you can come back to every 6 months or so. See where the new gaps have emerged, see where the new problems are, see what answers have changed, and from there you can choose your next initiatives to take on. So once you've assessed the health of your platform today, you can actually align your newfound platform goals to the business. So different businesses obviously have different requirements for their technology platforms. For example, when I worked at a hedge fund, we needed to make sure that we had enabled our teams to trade in global markets and that they could share content with our clients. Those were the two most important things for us, trading and content delivery. And anything that got in the way of that was totally unacceptable. So our team was designed around having engineering processes in order to buy down operational risk in those two areas. So figure out what those key requirements are for you. And from there, you can actually make sure that the goals make sense with the business needs. For a SaaS company, for example, it might be uptime. For e-commerce, it might be the payment processing. Whatever it is for you, figure that out and just make sure that your platform goals are aligning with your business goals. And so just to illustrate this point, I'll give a trivial example. Say that payment processing is at the core of your business, and say that there have been incidents in the payment processing service that have led to downtime and to revenue loss. You want to make sure you're diagnosing those incidents. What happened? What went wrong? And let's say that once you do this, you see that there's not really many unit tests in your platform. And again, bear with me because it's a simple example. You can make unit testing the metric that you focus on for these next 3 months. So you can make sure that no pull request gets merged without unit tests. You can block PRs that lower your code coverage. You can choose to improve this over time, and make sure that teams are aligned around this key initiative and focused on it. A level up from this is that basically you should see in 3 months' time that incidents are reduced. If If they're not, you can go back to the drawing board and see, okay, maybe it wasn't unit testing. Maybe we should have been focusing on our release validation or something like that. Obviously, this is a very simple example, but to be an effective engineer, but effective engineering leaders need to deeply understand the business and the requirements and be able to understand where they are today to pinpoint which of the gaps that they have are affecting those the most. And so critically, you want to communicate to your engineering teams why metrics like these, for example, unit test coverage, are so important and how they tie to those business goals. So once you figured out what your platform goals are and align them to the business, you can move on to the third part, which is choosing your levers. Every company has different strengths and constraints, and these let you figure out which strategies make the most sense for you. But three potential areas you can choose to focus on are development maturity, operational readiness, and operational maturity. And I'll dive into what each one is and the different questions you can ask yourselves. But for example, a company with an engineering team of long tenured engineers maybe doesn't need to worry as much about development maturity, right? Maybe that's what they're set up. Maybe they're already set up for success there. Whereas maybe a startup needs to think more about development maturity. Whatever it is, as I go through these questions, you'll be able to see how the gaps align to these levers. So let me start off with our first one, development maturity. This one is, are people really building things in the right way? And so the types of things that you can ask yourself are, who are the service owners, right? Automation and tooling. Is it easy for people to build and develop? Are people following code review standards? Are there branch protections? Does every pull request need to be reviewed? Do you have confidence in your code, whether that be through unit tests, end-to-end test, integration test, measuring your just general code coverage? Do you have paved roads or golden paths? And so you want to understand, as a platform team, is your team set up to build things the right way? Are you setting the proper guide rails to make sure that teams can build stuff today? Maybe you answered yes to all those questions and you know all of that, and you have great development maturity. So maybe you want to focus on operational readiness. Are people actually shipping things in the right way? So this is determining whether services and resources are ready to be deployed to production. Do they have run books? Things like that. So once again, we have our question of who around ownership. Who are the service owners? Are services ready to be deployed to production? Does the service have runbooks? Are there dashboards? Are there logs? If something happens, is there an easy place to be able to roll back? Is there a runbook for that? Does the service have monitors and alerts ready so that you are notified whenever there are issues? What's the on-call escalation? Who do you call when something does go wrong? Are there any existing vulnerabilities that could potentially cause issues? Once again, this is like, are things being shipped in the right way? The third lever you could think about pulling is operational maturity. So are people on your team operating in the right way? So this is things like, are services meeting SLOs? Are on-call metrics looking healthy? Are post-mortem tickets closed promptly? Are you looking at DORA metrics? Are you continuously monitoring and fixing vulnerabilities? And so looking at all those three levers, again, development maturity, operational readiness, operational maturity, where should you be focusing your efforts based on where your platform is today and those key questions and your business values? And so you want to make sure that you pick the lever that truly does deliver the most value. So building, shipping, and operating a platform are the three things that developers do. And so a high quality engineering team can see maybe 0 incidents a month. They probably have high velocity and little to no security risks. How do you get to that? So if incidents are hurting the business, maybe what you want to focus on is operational readiness and operational maturity. If velocity is the thing holding you back, maybe you have no incidents, but you're not really delivering. You're not really delivering new features quickly, then maybe you want to focus on development maturity and operational readiness. If security is your biggest concern right now, then again, maybe you look at operational maturity and readiness. You can choose the different levers to pull based on that. And so, like I mentioned, I currently work at Cortex. And so one of our products actually makes it really easy for companies to measure this and see how they're doing today. It's called scorecards. And so scorecards allow your team to define standards like production readiness and development quality and enforce them without building scripts and maintaining spreadsheets. We pull in data from all the different integrations. We meet you at the tools that you're using and can help you measure these things based on your defined set of questions, your defined goals, your defined rules. So check out Cortex if you are interested. Thank you so much. Hopefully you learned something today and enjoyed the talk.